It's Friday, so it's time for the next in our Fanzine Friday series, and today we're taking a look at Underworld Oracle number 7. I'm so excited that I've gotten a copy of this, so I wanted to jump right into it. Please stick around. I'm AZ Mountaineer, and this is our channel, Old School Rules, where we celebrate the community of old school gamers and grognards who like classic RPGs, miniatures, magazines, and everything that goes with it. Each week on the Fanzine Friday series, we take a fanzine off the shelf for a closer look, and right off the shelf, I just got this one this week, Underworld Oracle number 7 from 1978. This is Lou Nisbet with some help from Phil Alexander. This is the last one in the series, so I'm so glad to have that series completed, and I can't wait to talk with you about it today. Hope you enjoy the video. So in the last video, we looked at Illusionist Vision number 1, and I told you we'd look at numbers 2 and 3 in the coming weeks, but I just got Underworld Oracle number 7, and I wanted to do this video. We've previously looked at Underworld Oracles 1 through 6, and this one has been kind of hard to find, so I finally got that in my collection. Wanted to read it right away, wanted to share it with you all right away. Lou Nisbet puts this together with help from Phil Alexander. The other ones were smaller, right? This is full size, like a White Dwarf magazine or a TSR module sized hardstock cover or heavy stock cover with 11.5 by 17 pages folded in half, stapled through the middle. And we have more professional design, right? A full color on the cover page. So he does not do a good job, candidly, with attributions in this edition. I think all the art is Phil Alexander, but he doesn't actually say that anywhere. Some of it is signed, but some of it is not. Some of it seems like it's maybe signed by somebody else, but I couldn't figure out who that was. So here's the cover, though. You can definitely tell this is Phil Alexander's art. He's got this funny looking guy who's black and white, but in the reflection in the mirror, he's color. So I thought that was kind of a neat trick that they do there. He has editorial opinions and news all on this page. The editorial's pretty short. He talks about, it being a little later than they wanted to, all the work they've done to put this one together, but now they think they've got a much more professional magazine put together, which I would agree, although I love the old ones too. But unfortunately, it seems like the extra effort or something about trying to make the transition and put this all together was just too much effort to sustain, which is, again, too bad. So the table of contents, we've got the editorial, and then we've got opinions and news. The opinions are his opinion, and he talks about sort of realism involved in your fantasy games, and whether or not you should be trying to do that or not. And then he just gives some generic information about the contents going forward, the type of things that they're looking for. Again, it's pretty D&D centric, although he does talk a lot about Chivalry Sorcery, and we'll see that in this edition as well. A Warrior's Dream is sort of a combination of him talking about your memory of role playing, and then he goes into sort of first person where he's a warrior, and or maybe it's third person. Like my son's studying this stuff in English, I forget it. But he goes into this as if you're this warrior who's been disappointed because he's raised up in levels and there's not anything left to do. And then he meets this guy who says, well, yeah, you keep getting more and more powerful, and that's why more and more powerful monsters confront you, right? They're drawn to you, but which is sort of back and forth between the fourth wall, talking about, of course, if characters raise up in levels, the dungeon master is going to make that harder to try and up the challenge. Halls of Testing returns. I'm really happy about that. I love the Halls of Testing because it's a unique idea that he came up with. I love this too. The Tumbler is his class, right, that they had in Underworld Oracle, and now he's got a Hall of Testing for that character class. The guy who is the hall, if you will, is put together by a master tumbler who passed away, and so it's a test for you to get through. It's a new character. Again, what's great about these is they're for first level. You usually can gain enough experience, they say, to go up a level. So it'd be a great way as well. This concept in particular, you have new characters who come in. Everybody else, second, third, fourth level, run a guy through a one-on-one hall of testing before the main group gets back together. Give that character a chance, honestly, to earn up some experience rather than just giving it to him. There's an article on fantasy chess, which you remember there's some articles talking about that before. The concept there was you play chess, but when the characters got next to each other, instead of the automatic victory of the guy who made the move, you would roll and do a combat to determine who was going to win. Okay, then we've got reviews. He does a review of Sword and Sorcery, as well as a new book that's come out for Chivalry and Sorcery, and he likes both of those real well. He seems, although he doesn't always want to incorporate all that realism into his game, he describes, he really likes the detail that they've put into all those things, all those charts and ways you could bring in bits and pieces into your campaign. There's a new character class called Storm Lords, and we'll talk about that in detail. There's new monsters, we'll talk about that. And then he's got this concept in the back for the Fantasy Nation. And interestingly, because he doesn't seem to love all the detail, he's got all kinds of detail back here on how you could create your own world. And we'll talk about this. He's got all these charts of things to map out. I'll explain that a little better when we get there. And he's got contacts, which is some letters and some names and addresses for people to get connected. The only people I know for sure participate here are Lou, Phil Alexander, and Allie Morrison, because he does mention them indirectly. Here's the map for the halls of testing. It's a good one. These are really designed to test the skills of a particular character class, but nonetheless, I think it's fun to read through the dungeon. It's got lots of really clever ideas in it, including some new monsters we'll talk about in a minute. I really like the little art down here in the bottom. It's a sort of like an icon style of drawing. Next we have the Storm Lord, so I want to talk about that. It's a new character class. I like it. The Storm Lord, I'm not sure if it was inspired by anything in literature. He doesn't necessarily say that it was. This is someone like who's connected to storms, like in nature. This is an interesting twist. The prime requisite here is Constitution 15, but then also Strength 13, Wisdom 14, Dexterity 14, and recommended Intelligence over 15. Because this character class does learn spells, and he seems to imply you would use the Intelligence attribute to determine your learning of spells as if it were a magic user. As they get up higher in level, like level 10, they begin to take less damage from things like fireballs, lightning bolts, magic missiles, etc. And then they have a number of spells, which is a blend of magic user spells, cleric spells, and some new spells. And this goes on, as you can see here, for 4 pages. Most of that is a description of the spells. And he talks about whether it's just like the magic user spell first level or it's a new one. He gives you a full description. At the end, Lou Nisbet says that this guy turned in, I think he says, let me get it right, 20 pages for this. He says it's Andreas, so I don't know who Andreas is, but Andreas has turned in 20 pages for the Storm Lord. He edited it down, including not having all the information about all the spells in here, which I noticed as well as I was trying to read it. But it seems like a good character class. People are always trying to come up with clever new ideas, and I think this guy did a pretty good job of coming up with something that had a different flair to it. Okay, new monsters. The Incrustator is a huge monster, like a rust monster, but it's basically going around absorbing metal, and it's got a shell on the back. Although it absorbs metal, it doesn't necessarily dissolve it all, I guess, because the metal it absorbs, or maybe that feeds the crusty shell. So it looks like just a big scrap pile of metal when you encounter it, and it's got a really hard armor class. But if you can get through the armor class, armor shell, it's a little easier to kill. And then, but it also can damage your metal weapons, right? Like a rust monster. Next, we have the Fire Naga. It's basically like a giant serpent with flames, and then its head is kind of funky looking. It says it just has these 2 black dots on the front of what would more or less be a head, which are the eyes, which are particularly susceptible. And then, it's got a tail, and it does fire damage. When it's killed, its fire will consume it. So that's kind of a nice dramatic ending. The Furies, which come from mythology, didn't love these. They're kind of complicated. They can appear, on the prime material plane. They can appear on other planes. They can polymorph into different shapes. They can poison people. It seemed a little all over the place, and I'm not really sure why. Again, I guess maybe you wanted to role play that, somebody finding the Furies, right? But then I don't, given their connection to Zeus, etc., I don't know that you really want to get around killing them. The next one is excellent. and it's in the adventure here in the Halls of Testing. It's called the Blue Swamp Crab. And it says, even though it looks sort of like a crab, it's an intelligent creature that was done by a magical experiment, and has a crab body, but stubby little three-toed webbed feet that it uses to move around in. And it does have, fangs that it can use to bite you with. The Comatadaloc. I'm not sure if that came from anywhere. I've never heard that before. It's an undead monster. It says, formed from the souls of long dead fighting men who were banished below ground after a particular war, the Coma War. And so we've got the Comataloc. And these are also in the Halls of Testing adventure this time. And then we have the Hermaphrodite. Not thrilled with this one. It comes from a deep pool. It lures you in, pulls you underwater, and turns you into another. That's how it replicates into another hermaphrodite. So that's it for the new monsters. And here's his Fantasy Nation article, which is about you creating your world, and he's giving you this advice. And I've gone all over the place DMing before, right? But his advice is essentially sketch out your world. You need to have some important events in history, and then you need to sketch out your calendar going forward so that there will be events occurring around the party, not necessarily caused by the party, but just to give some flavor of realism. And he's got a lot of these. I'm showing you the pages mostly so you can see the different artwork that's drawn here, or maybe if you blow it up a little, you can see the artwork. He's got things like, assassinations, attacks, war, famine, disease, all these different type of things that can occur. And he's just giving you a bunch of random tables to use to roll up sort of, general kingdom specific or city specific events that you could put into your world. And again, he's like, mark off the days, the weeks, the months that go by in your campaign, and then just let these things happen so that it gives a little flavor to the world around you. I think the idea is good. I'd probably think through those myself, but maybe the tables help you get inspired to do that. And he's got some messages back here again from Don Turnbull, talking a little bit about Lou Pulsifer and some other folks that sent things in. The reason I put this up here, though, I wanted to talk about the middle column. Here's something I'm going to have to go look for. I've never heard of this, never heard anyone mention having this, but maybe I just haven't asked. They have a collection, they say, of halls of testing, all the halls of testing into a book that you can buy. They do have back issues, they say, as well. And then they also say they have a limited number of pocket-sized versions of Underworld Oracle. I don't really know what that would mean, what size that would be. The other ones were smaller, but I'd be very interested to learn more about that, see if they actually exist, see if somebody has one I could get a look at. And they also are selling Underworld Oracle badges, prints of the covers on a background. And I don't know exactly what that would look like, but again, be very curious to see if anyone ever had one of these, or even still has one that we could all get a look at. Would be fantastic. So one of the guys named Peter Tarrant writes in, and I guess he was sort of being very whimsical in his missing of seeing the regular publication of the Oracle, right? Which, it was a great fanzine. If I was around back then and had it coming, I would have been looking forward to it as well. And so here's the rear cover. And you can't read this, but this is basically, they've printed this whimsical way he went about complaining about this. He wrote like a little fantasy story. The Oracle has been lost. We need to go to the world of Edinburgh, which is Edinburgh is where they were published from, and try and find the Oracle and rescue the Oracle so that we can all, continue to hear from the Oracle in the future. So it was very clever. I like that he gave him prominent attribution for both his appreciation of the fanzine as well as his creativity. Okay, that's it for Underworld Oracle number 7. I love this fanzine. It's fantastic. If you can ever get copies of it at a reasonable price, you won't be disappointed, I don't think, in the content. And if you're watching these videos, you probably like this kind of stuff, right? We do try to put stuff out a couple times a week. If you aren't already, please subscribe. Please tell your friends who like this kind of thing. We'd appreciate getting more subscribers, trying to build up our base and get more of a community built around the appreciation of all this old school awesomeness that I appreciate and love, and I think those who watch the channel do as well. Hope you guys are having a great Friday afternoon. Have a great weekend, and until next time, keep rolling 20s.